given that this Primakov Triangle is the target here, could you outline exactly what are the consequences of what Trump is doing? Is it that he's pushing them closer together, or is it that these powers are already coming together? And perhaps you can outline just what ways we can expect to and watch out for as this all, as these escalations continue.
Well, they are getting together and for quite a while now. And now we have a geoeconomic and geopolitical juncture at the same time with, I called it the Trump tariff tizzy, side by side with the threat of a war or an attack, a hot attack or a hot war against Iran. In terms of geoeconomic and geopolitical conjunction, this is as volatile and as incandescent as it gets. And it's not by accident that this is a new chapter of the definitive clash of the 21st century, which is not even, until recently I was calling it NATO-stan. No, it's not NATO-stan. Now it's the naked empire by himself. And NATO, from the point of view of this incarnation, naked empire, it doesn't count against, of course, Eurasia integration. And you can read the Primakov Triangle as all these layers, Eurasia integration, leadership in BRICS and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, corridors of connectivity, support of the global south, pivoting to the east, looking at east, integration of Eurasia from West Asia to Southeast Asia, South Asia, and Central Asia as well. So this is a war of the naked empire against this, let's say, this Eurasia conglomerate, in fact. And the focal point could become this attack on Iran, if it ever happens. There are off-ramps. And the Primakov Triangle at the moment, their big task is to prove to the circus ringmaster, which is not a thinker. He doesn't read, by the way. He doesn't read books. He doesn't read history. He doesn't know much about history. He doesn't know anything about anthropology, sociology, etc. So forget it, So it has to be a sort of haggling in the carpet bazaar, sort of, to prove to him that his deal and the deal that he wants is not going to work. And he's going to have to listen to the other side. And the other side is very rational. And the other side is not trying to sell anything to him. The other side is trying to tell him, look at reality. And then make a realistic decision. So this is where we are at the moment. But it is now a new chapter of a possible all-out war of a naked empire, raw, crude, bestial, to a Greek myth level, against this process of Eurasia integration personified by this new Primakov Triangle, the three BRICS. It's crazy because we thought that we will have a new paradigm, a new narrative with the end of the previous crash test dummy administration. And that was the title of the book that I published last year. It was NATO-stan against Eurasia. Until the end of the previous administration, this was the paradigm. Now the paradigm changed completely, and there's no more paradigm. Because the circus ringmaster, he's breaking everything. It's basically, it's a crazy pigeon destroying the chessboard. All over the spectrum. And I never start wars. Man, in less than 3 months, he already started one and he's playing another. And he hasn't finished the previous one. He hasn't finished one of the forever wars. He opened a minor, if we can call it minor, what's going to happen to Yemen war. And he's planning another major war, which It's still a forever war, but this is a forever war of the US, Israel against Iran since the start of the Islamic Revolution. So we are in a much worse jam now than we were 3 months ago. We were happy and we didn't know it.
Well, in my estimation, a lot of people believe that Trump's so-called isolationism and protectionism and all of this was to move away from escalation. But now what seems to be clear in wars, is that Donald Trump, I believe, represents a strand of what now is a big part of the U.S. political establishment that believes the United States can defeat Russia, China, Iran on its own. The way that J.D. Vance talks to troops in Greenland, for example, he literally says Russia and China's navies need our protection so we can defeat them with you. That's why Denmark is fit. So could you talk about maybe this idea that the United States can go it alone to defeat these powers? Because there are people who believe that Iran can be defeated, Russia can be defeated, China can be defeated by the United States, based on what I think is Donald Trump's current foreign policy direction and how he's framing all of this and how his administration, more importantly, the entirety of the U.S. foreign policy establishment is framing it at the moment.
Well, the real forever war was never Ukraine, right? The real forever war is Israel, U.S. against Iran. This is the one, From the point of view of American national interest, a war against Russia never made any sense. From the point of view of American national interest, a war against Iran makes no sense. But from a Zionist point of view, that's the only thing they think about. It can have an apocalyptic ending. It can have and for them will be, in a certain sense, perfect, because they are all scatological, apocalyptic, messianic, and all that. So if the war leads to a process that Israel will finally crumble, they will crumble, but there will be some option, and they're going to carry a lot of people with them. This is the way they think, These people are extremely dangerous. And unfortunately, they are infiltrated like a cancer or several cancers in the body politic of the United States and the parts of the collective West, most of the collective West, in fact. And on the other side, we have rational actors, former empires. Russia doesn't want a new empire. They don't need it. China doesn't want an empire. China wants to do commerce with the whole planet. And the Persian Empire, Iran wants to have its sphere of influence in West Asia as the most important power in West Asia, period. That's it. And of course, be free outside of Western sanctions. Its development potential is absolutely extraordinary. And it's a very wealthy country, natural resources as well. That's it. These are rational actors. And on the other side, we have total irrationality. From the point of view of the Zionists, scatological, messianic, apocalyptic, totally demented. And of course, a president of the United States that's very insecure, very easy to manipulate, who owes favors to donors, we all know in fact, the names of all of them. And of course, he cannot say no to. In fact, he will try to sell this war as it was imposed on me. I didn't want it. I wanted to make a deal, but they didn't want a deal, so I had to go to war, which is maybe what a 4-year-old would explain the whole drama, right? So it's very, very dangerous. It's a conflict of rationality against irrationality. And unfortunately, irrationality is on the Western side. The irrationality of the proxy war against Russia, which should continue forever, that's the irrational component of Europe, which is something that we could write the 10,000 essays about it, what went wrong after the Enlightenment? We could start like that, you know, or what went wrong after the Renaissance, for that matter. And it's frightening for all of us who try to analyze impartially and with a cold judgment and trying to find some merit on the irrational side about continuing these forever wars until forever, right? And why? And when we compare to the rational side and the process of Eurasian integration and the process of organizing the global south, etc., we see history following an adult pattern, a measured pattern, based on experience, based on what they learn, based on their mistakes, like the Chinese do. The Chinese grow because they learn from their mistakes all the time. So, you know, it's not a question of a choice between both sides. It's seeing the absurdity of total irrationality, trying to control a rational approach for the development of history, for the continuation of history, and for a more equitable world. But none of that, Danny and our audience, we should not be shaken by all that, because we have come to a point where I think this is the apex of the postmodernist disease. The postmodernist, and this could be okay, a thousand page book. The apex of postmodernist disease has led to the normalization of genocide. And this is the real face of the collective West. It's what's happening in Gaza. Nothing beats what's happening. Nothing. So that's it. So this irrationality is reflected in, okay, now let's expand our war. Now let's attack Iran. Of course. You've already normalized a genocide. What next? Okay.
Yeah.
It's sad and once again, sad, very frightening. And unfortunately, there's not much any of us can do to change the situation, apart from talk to our fellow citizens across the world. And in fact, most of you who are listening to us, you already know what we're talking about. And basically, we are sharing our impotence to change it.
I was just checking out these hands-off protests that happened in the United States supposedly against Donald Trump. But one of their demands was hands-off NATO. And none of the major forces there had anything to say about Yemen or Gaza, nothing at all. I mean, in some people said, oh, well, and some people came who were, you know, putting that message out there. But in terms of who was leading this thing, who were spreading the message everywhere, it was hands off NATO. So that is how sick the United States, as you called it, postmodern. That's how the current situation in the United States and collective West really is. One final thing, Pepe, I wanted to squeeze in here, though, because people continuously ask me this. They say, Danny, is Iran capitulating right now by participating in talks with the United States? Is Russia and China aiding that capitulation? Because I do think that there's this, because of how the United States behaves as this hegemon, so destructive, so vile, the genocide that you just mentioned, the wars, that Russia, China, and Iran are essentially being defeated in a sense. But you make the case that actually there is this big transition happening. Could you help people who have this idea that Russia, China, and Iran are capitulating, are being defeated and crushed, that they're being played? Talk about the reality, because I think there's a reality that speaks more to how we should actually be looking at this.
They're trying to introduce a serious element of rationality into a situation that is fast going totally out of control. And that implies serious diplomacy. Don't forget that these are three top diplomatic powers. Very, very important. And the three together are a diplomatic powerhouse, in fact. There were a lot of accusations from all corners that Russia played too softly during these 3 years and ongoing of the proxy war in Ukraine. They always left space for diplomacy. It was the puppets in Kiev and the European Union that cut off diplomacy from the beginning, and of course the previous crash test dummy administration in the US. But the Russians always left space open for diplomacy because they are rational actors, because they don't want to impose what they do on anybody. So now, okay, it's going to be extremely hard to have on one side the Primakov Triangle trying to instill a measure of rationality on a circus ringmaster now totally out of control, and especially manipulated and squeezed by the extreme power of the Zionist lobby on both sides of the Atlantic. It's going to be very, very hard, but they will do it. They will do it because it's a matter of if they don't solve this drama now, it's going to get much worse later. And they have maybe a window of opportunity now to show to this new American administration, look, the games that you used to play before, they don't apply anymore. And this is going to be a very tough sell, but if Trump understands that instinctively, always, once again, he's not a thinker. He cannot think, and he doesn't think. It's just this verboragic volcano, non-stop, 24/7. But if he has a glimpse of self-reflection, which is something that self-reflection and Trump doesn't combine, right? But a glimpse of self-reflection that, yes, I cannot get into this because I'm going to pay an extremely heavy price. And only these three rational actors are capable to show him or even detail him, and even Putin in a phone call, starting, Putin could start with Cyrus and Darius in the Persian Empire 2,500 years ago, a la Putin, to get now. I say, but look, this is why you shouldn't mess with them. Mm-hmm. So we have still a glimpse of a rationality being introduced in the middle of the dementia. This is where we are at the moment.
Yeah, and I think that rationality, Pepe, is incredibly positive and powerful in the sense that it reflects a lot of developments that you cover so deeply, whether it is BRICS, whether it's the multilateral and the multipolar mechanisms that are being developed, the infrastructure, the development together, the diplomacy that's been engaged with over the last several years that has had a major impact. Hell, we have Saudi Arabia. They won't actually station U.S. jets to fuel to go to Yemen. And a big reason is because of the Iran Saudi normalization brokered by Beijing. It's a big reason for that habit. It's a big change. Yes. So there are things that are happening. It's just that you're exactly right. Like there's the United States, if Russia, China, and Iran go full throttle and dive into a conflict, the United States is nuclear weapons, use nuclear weapons, and are more than willing to destroy the chessboard. So that's how I see it. You can any final comments? Any final comments, Pepe, before we head out of here?
So the question, I think, all of us is we're probably asking the same question all over the world. Are they going to destroy the chessboard because they see that from now on it's going to get much more difficult, not only to recover their privileged position since the end of the Second World War, which is gone, but of course defending their genocidal aircraft carrier in West Asia? Soon this is going to be impossible, and soon there is going to be a wave of revulsion from all over the world, And the backlash against the genocidals is going to be something really historic. Maybe this is the moment. Maybe this is the moment now. It's an act of desperation. You can, for instance, explain the current geoeconomic hell as an act of desperation. But certainly you can explain the geopolitical dementia over all of us as an act of desperation. If this war happens, it will be a supreme act of desperation.
Yes, and it'll be a catastrophe. I cannot.
We cannot even imagine.
For the United States, this is not Iraq. This is not Afghanistan. This is not 2001. It's not 1991. This is 2025. It's a much different world.